Hello again, I am Bunty. So, we waited for Pokemon Day, a marketing gimmick Game Freak and the Pokemon Company and Nintendo used to give the brand a little spank once a year on the anniversary of the original Pokemon releases for Game Boy in Japan, the 27th of February 1996, which, as of today, was 28 years and 1 day ago. This year, though, was the first year of Pokemon Days that I really had zero hype, no expectations, no guesses, no hopes. And despite being awake at 1 AM local time, which was when the live stream happened in my time zone, I couldn't even be bothered watching it. Literally the first time in a quarter of a century that I've just not cared about news of a new Pokemon game. That is how much Game Freak has allowed their ineptitude, their laziness, and lack of self-respect to corrode the joy in the hearts of myself and a lot of people like me in the Pokemon fandom. They've made it so hard to just trust them, believe in them, have any faith in them, look forward to anything they do, because they keep disappointing us. And there's only so many times you can do that before people go, well, there's so many other games I could be playing over there. Why am I waiting for you to get it right? Look at all that! I'm going to go over there and play those. And for a lot of us, this sentiment was solidified after the catastrophic disappointment and mishandling and general lack of quality polish and clear lack of F's to give Game Freak showed when they released the embarrassingly half-assed and broken Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. But I, personally, did quite like those games' predecessor, Legends Arceus. It was a long way from perfect, don't get me wrong, but I thought and hoped that what it represented, the changes it represented and showed us, the risks it took, it changed things. It did things mechanically that were fresh and fun and engaging and exciting and forward-looking. And for a while there, I was really excited that, hey, this represents the future that Game Freak are aiming for. Maybe the next game will be built on the back of this, and it'll be fantastic. And then we got Scarlet and Violet, and I was like, oh, okay. So, that's the backstory. That's how we got here. And I stirred from my brain's incomplete emulation of sleep to find now we have news of a new Pokemon Legends game. And for the sake of my own sardonic joy, I shall be frequently referring to it as Palworld without guns, and I do hope that catches on. We will get to the real and very stupid name in a minute, but despite sharing the Legends sub-branding, we still have literally no idea if it carries anything at all from the people loved about Legends Arceus, because they did something I properly and sincerely and purely loathe about game publishers. They announced a new title and showed off no in-game footage at all. No gameplay. Not even a cutscene. Couldn't even summon a single screenshot to publish. Not a single frame. Not one frame of anything real about the game. Only a heavily, and I mean heavily, stylized and abstracted, pre-rendered set of scenes designed to give the impression of a fast and lively and exciting world with a flow to it, but ultimately delivering zero useful information about the actual product in question they're trying to sell us. We know nothing about how the game even works, nothing about the mechanics, no hint at all, if they kept anything at all, from Legends Arceus. Maybe they're using that name because it is a successor to that and what that game started to establish, or maybe they're just using the Legends branding for anything that is kind of linked to the vague main timeline of the core RPGs, but isn't as far from them mechanically as the full spin-off games tend to be. A middle ground catch-all branding for random experimental fiddling with core systems so they can do that without making the monstrously, notoriously shitty fandom piss their whole wardrobe of pants by changing something about the so-called core games and just titling them as if they're a core game. And don't pretend I'm being facetious or that sounds stupid or silly or exaggerating, because I've watched this fandom and interacted with this fandom and made videos that have attracted the attention of this fandom since the fandom existed, and you know I'm right about them. But back on point, there's nothing real to get excited about, to discuss, to even think about based on this teaser trailer. All we know for sure is the setting. Literally, the only real thing that tells us anything useful, informative, that we know is the setting. From that, we can pull some fair guesses about what the roster of available Pokemon probably is going to be, at least as a starting point, and also, not much else, to be frank. That's all the region tells us. Because there's Kalos, the region first introduced in Pokemon X and Pokemon Y, which, for the record, are among my higher-rated core Pokemon games. I rather enjoyed those ones. And the assumption a lot of people are running with, given the lack of any useful information at all in the trailer, of course, is, because this is what the Pokemon community does, just make wild guesses based on nothing or tiny slivers of information that they leap from, that people are already assuming it's set entirely within the main city. I've already seen people talking about that. Oh, how are they going to set the entire game within the main city? Oh, they're going to have big underground stretches of subways and things like that, and all the game is going to take place underground where you catch the Pokemon, and then the city is the overground. How do you, where is that coming from? But what else do I have to talk about? The only thing we were shown is stylized glimpses of a familiar city. We don't even know the proper pronunciation of the game's title. We know how it reads, but is that Pokemon Legends ZA? Pokemon Legends ZA? ZA, perhaps. Z-A, Z Alpha. We don't know. We got no idea. Because they didn't bother with a single line of voiceover in the trailer, in the nothing trailer. They didn't even introduce it in the presentation. They just played it at the end of 12 miserably dull minutes of presentations about shitty garbage microtransaction infested mobile shit. And it's not coming till 2025, by the way, so at the dead, ragged end of life of the Nintendo Switch, which either means it will look and run like shit, just like their other Nintendo Switch Game Freak produced Pokemon games, or they've left it far too late to try and be a competent developer and actually take advantage of what the Switch is capable of in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, or it will be for the Switch's successor, hoping to be a system seller for the new one. Maybe it'll even be a cross-gen game like Breath of the Wild was, where it existed on Switch and the Wii U. Because, of course, Breath of the Wild was originally designed for the Wii U, but then the Switch came along, the Wii U was failing, so they went, hey, you know what? This is a pretty good game. Let's not trap it on the Wii U. Let's make a port for the Switch. Turns out that worked really, really well, so maybe they deliberately delayed this game in order to try and do the same thing again. Of course, the Switch's successor is still unacknowledged at all publicly by Nintendo. There's no path to any truth there right now. All we have is speculation and guesses. The Mega Evolution logo was vomited up at the end of the teaser, which, as far as gimmicks go for these games, I guess is one of the better ones. I didn't hate it as much as I hated some of the other stupid gimmicks they tried to slam in there to spice up the actual battle. But again, without any actual gameplay, there's no way to know what form or function Mega Evolutions will even take this time around. So there's no point getting excited about it if you liked it last time. They might have changed it. So what's the point of talking about it? The last thing we know is, based on the design cues of the logo alone, and again, this is a fairly safe guess, but it is just a guess, the game is more than likely focused around, as the key legendary Pokemon, Zygarde. Because, of course, Zygarde is part of a trio of legendaries, and, of course, Pokemon Z was the much-rumoured third pillar game we never ever got after the 2013 release of X and Y, which, for their cover monsters, had the other two legendaries from that trio. After Red and Blue and Yellow, and Gold and Silver and Crystal, and Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald, and Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, X and Y was the first time in the main series of releases to not have a direct follow-up game, a third-tier game. Even the absolute garbage fire that was Black and White got Black 2 and White 2. They got two third-tier games. Well, kind of, sort of. And look, I know some of you are hardcore fans of Black and White and just got your panties in a bunch because I don't like it. Guess what? People are allowed to like different kind of games, and I thought the writing in Black and White was atrociously stupid. But I expect, for this one, for Palworld Without Guns, they're wanting the more easily manipulated Pokemon fans to gush and spurt with excitement about how we're finally getting Pokemon Z or some shite like that. Not me. We're well past me giving Game Freak the benefit of the doubt as developers. It's show, don't tell time for them, and it has been for quite some time now. It is mildly promising. They seem to be taking more time for Palworld Without Guns and are not just rushing it out the door just to hit a release date to have a mainline Pokemon game released in a set calendar year. But the cynic in me is also thinking that might very well not even be a choice that Game Freak have made themselves, but a demand from Nintendo to hold it back until the Switch 2, or whatever it actually gets called, is ready for release. And their intent is to use this game either as a last gasp to sell as much of the original Switch inventory as they can, so they can get rid of it before the Switch 2 is released, so they don't have it sitting around in warehouses for years, or it will be intended as a system seller for the new generation hardware. Game Freak has done literally nothing ever to demonstrate that they'd have made a decision like this out of concern for the actual quality of the game. Their history speaks for itself on this, being heavily criticized for at least a decade already for not spending enough time or effort on quality and rushing games out just to have them out on a year-by-year basis. Why would they change now unless the choice wasn't theirs? The clusterfuck of half-assitude that was Scarlet and Violet still sold 23 million copies, almost 10 million more than the much better game Legends Arceus, despite looking and running like absolute garbage and being a worse game. I know, most of this video has been deeply negative, and I don't like being that way about a game series that I've spent so many years enjoying. I can't tell you how much I want Palworld Without Guns to actually be good, to be brilliant, to be amazing, to be groundbreaking even, to be a proper rebirth and revitalization of the entire game series, to bring joy back to it. But again, we are long past Game Freak being afforded the luxury of any benefit of the doubt on that score. They abused that trust already. They let it erode deliberately and greedily and lazily, and they don't get to have any benefit of the doubt anymore. You have to earn that. Show, don't tell. Because this is nothing. This is not showing anything. This is saying, hey, there's a new game coming next year. Ta-da! Now give us lots of press and coverage and headlines. Whee! F off, Game Freak. You will be getting nothing but contempt and disrespect from people like me until you actually show us something of value, of interest, of substance about Palworld Without Guns. But there you go. I was actually intending to just generally ignore this, but I've already been getting a few messages saying, hey, what did you think about the presentation? What do you think about the trailer? What do you think about this? And frankly, I'd rather just make a video about it than just tell people one at a time that, well, I'm a bit dried up and cynical about the whole thing because of Game Freak's entire history. So, here's what I think about it. This is what I think about it. Thank you as always to the patrons scrolling up above there. I am Blunty, currently embodying... Actually, you know what? If you made it to the end of the video, and you know the canonical name of this character, leave it in the down below. And it's good luck catching them all, because there's like over 1,000 of them at this point. I remember thinking when they released Generation 2, oh man, that's 100 new Pokemon. How am I going to remember all those names?